story begins with our main character playing his virtual game. He and his teammates just finished an event, so the others are now logging off, and our main character is about to do the same. But before our main character leaves, he decides to open the treasure chest he just received. A blinding light shines after opening it. It turns out his mastery reward is a golden ticket. Using this ticket, he can cross into the Azure world, which he thought was a crappy reward and a scam. However, curiosity lingered in his mind. Therefore, he still used it. To his surprise, he was instantly sucked by a black hole. Soon after, he wakes up in an open field and notices that he is on the 10-mile slope, next to the beginner's village. This confuses him since he remembers he turned off his VR, but to his surprise, he doesn't have a VR device with him. However, he had actually prepared for transmigration just in case, but he wasn't ready to become a monster. Becoming a monster, he thought that there would definitely be some cheats. Even a slime could improve itself, but he was mistaken, as the slime sat on him to death. A goblin crushed his skull with a mallet, and even a same-level skeleton defeated him easily. This outcome discourages him immensely, and the only benefit he gets from transmigrating is that he gets resurrected relatively quickly after death. Even the slime who killed him a couple of times is already at level 2, but with this, he soon realizes that he could also level up, but then he remembers that he is the weakest monster in this place. Still, this didn't stop him from finding another way to level up. A few moments passed by. Two adventurers are doing their novice task and are fighting a few skeletons. The knight successfully kills the skeletons in front of him, just leaving the one who is at the back. So the mage notices the surviving skeleton monster is acting a bit strange, but the knight explained to her that the characters in Azure are all hyper-intelligent, so a skeleton behaving strangely isn't odd. Unexpectedly, the skeleton in front of him flicked him off, slightly offending the knight, but that wasn't enough. So the main character gets something from the nearest bush and takes out a board calling him an idiot. Now the knight knows he can't let this slide, so he charges at him, making the skeleton smile, as he knows his plan worked. Without hesitation, he taps out from the scene and let the other skeleton do his dirty work, since the knight awakens the hatred of monsters. When the monsters of Azure are awakened with hatred, they will prioritize attacking players in a specific radius. If you kill them, the experience gain will be shared among everyone who assisted the kill. He knew this because he has been a player of Azure for 10 years, so he is familiar with everything here. Even if he became a monster, he can still make something out of it and find the truth of his transmigration. Soon after he levels up, the first thing he will do once he reaches level 3 is kill that slime 10,000 times. Meanwhile, in the World Channel forum, the newbies are complaining about a level 5 skeleton who is harassing them. This commotion caught the eye of a level 25 knight. Therefore, without hesitations, he declares that he will help them to deal with the skeleton. In the 10-mile slope, the main character is enjoying the sun with his guards and his own slave slime. He was able to tame them because, as their level increases, their intelligence does as well. Therefore, he can finally give them instructions and communicate. But his day is ruined when the level 25 knight suddenly attacks him from behind. He didn't even get a chance to run, and was killed on the spot. Fortunately for him, death only drops half of the experience gained. With this, he realizes he was being too arrogant, but he knows not to let this matter slide. So he plans to make the knight pay just like that slime. However, living in the game for 8 days, he grasped that 2 days had passed in reality. So he realized that he quickly needed to find a way to get out, since he believed his parents must be worried about him even the slightest. But his assumptions were totally wrong, because his parents are enjoying their vacations without worrying about him for one bit. They didn't even care to message him. Meanwhile, the main character decides to level up quickly, so that he can change jobs at level 20. By that time, he will have a human body, and get his revenge. Soon after, he takes on a bunch of tasks, and kill a bunch of monsters. After repeating this without a break, he reached level 20 in a single day. Now he just has to change jobs in the main city. Therefore he went there, but expectedly he was blocked by the guards at the gate, and without question, he was slain on the spot. Then he resurrects immediately, but his death drops half of the experience gained. He is brought back to level 10. Now, he realizes how idiotic he is, as he just remembered he is a monster. A few moments later, at the Devil Wolf Valley, the adventurers are having a bad time dealing with the wolves. but they can't back out from the challenge since they need to collect wolf fur in order for them to change class. As they were discussing their strategy, the archer noticed a group of skeletons are ganging up on a single wolf. They were brutally attacking it with their teamwork, to which the archer was surprised to see it with his own eyes. But the wolf was not going to go down without a fight, so it was enraged. As its defense and attack become sharper, it was about to bring down his opponents with him, to which the archer was trying to tell his teammates about what is happening, but they were still busy discussing. In contrast, the wolf failed to kill its opponents and was being penetrated from behind. This made the archer more frantic. Therefore, his teammates stopped their conversations and went to look where the archer is pointing. To their surprise, monsters were farming other monsters and were far better hunters than they could ever be. Meanwhile, a new player has just logged into the game. A pixie welcomes him and introduces him to this amazing VR world called Azure. In Azure, he can even synchronize all of his 5 senses, including touch, to enjoy delicious food and the fragrance of flowers. At the same time, there are no fixed tasks in Azure. Players need to engage personally in NPC interactions, in addition to triggering missions from super intelligent AIs. He can also choose to enter an academy, improving his own skills and becoming a part of the Azure world. There are 5 basic abilities in this world, which are controlling elements, taming monsters, martial arts, engineering, and mind. Each ability has its own sub-abilities and are near infinite ways for him to combine different abilities. In Azure's virtual world, he can definitely find the ability that suits him best. After the basics have been introduced to him, the pixie is about to guide him to get used to his basic movements. To do this, the pixie asked the new player to go to the novice training camp, the 10-mile slope, and kill 10 low-level monsters. Once he finished it, he could come back to complete his quest. Hearing all this, he was filled with excitement and expectations, but this was soon diminished after he went through the portal and saw all the high-level skeletons waiting to jump on him. This confuses him, so he dropped his sword, which he should not do in front of these skeletons. Now defenseless, the skeleton easily ganged up on him from all sides, and with that, his fate was sealed. A few moments later, the skeletons are happily carrying their loot. Then the main character gives the small skeleton booklets and instructs him to distribute them to the other skeletons. And everyone must have the same equipment, other than those who have a different body shape like him. All other skeletons must look the same, and when he sees high-level players, he must follow the instructions written in this booklet. They must always follow these set of rules. First, everyone should choose a different direction to run in when escaping. Skeletons have a speed that outranks normal standards, so most players won't be able to catch up. Second, if the player is above level 5 or below 30, lure them to the rendezvous point, then prepare a 10-on-1, just like how they practiced. Third, if the player is above level 30 or has changed class already, record their player ID. After that, run towards the goblin camps and anger the goblins. Let the goblins attack the high-level player. Once the player is dealt with, they will still gain some experience points. This way, the high-level players won't be able to do anything to them. Unexpectedly, the skeletons have an issue with his master plan. This shocked him, but before he could ask why, the little guy clarifies that they don't know how to read, which shocked him even more. So he improvised and just instructed them orally, which they understood surprisingly fast. After that, he tells them that he will leave them for a while and put the little guy in charge of the crew. The little guy asks why he has to leave, to which he explained that the sky they can see right now is only little, but in the outside world, the sky is actually massive, since the Azure world is so vast that, even now, there is still a shortage of players and all sorts of cultures intertwine. He then tells the little guy that when he reaches a high enough level, there will be a time for him to go out and see the great mountains and rivers. This statement made the little guy's eyes shimmer with hope for the future, while the main character smirk as he realizes he is suddenly talking to a monster about this. However, Azure is really magical. He almost feels like all of them can really think deeply about it. After the heartwarming moment, he says his goodbyes to all of them and leaves the place. Still, after a while, he comes back because he accidentally carried the bags full of low-level armor that they stripped off those novice players instead of the required materials for his transfer, wasting his efforts to look cool back then. In a change of scene, a mage is going after a bunny and is trying to put a beast-taming curse on it, but little did she know Our main character is hiding in the bushes and is waiting for her to cast the curse. Therefore, as she released it towards the bunny, he knocks the bunny out, receiving the curse instead, making him a pet companion of the mage. As the system congratulate her for acquiring a level 34 skeleton monster as her first pet, since the first pet will be her most important companion and will accompany her through the entirety of her time in this game. Instead of being happy, she collapsed on the ground and started crying her eyes out, making the main character feel bad. So he asked her why, to which she replies that it is because she wanted a cute pink rabbit, and he looks too ugly for her. Now he realizes that he met a superficial idiot. Still, he knows that it is too late to back out, so he improvises, as he summons all the bullshit he can muster, to explain why he kicked the pink rabbit she wanted to tame out of the way. So he tells her a story that he is actually an extraordinarily handsome prince. The enemy kingdom oppressed them, but he had always been in contact with their princess, so they both eloped and broke from the shackles that held them back. However, in the end, they couldn't escape what the world thought about them, and everyone opposed them being together, so they could only send each other letters delivered by their guards to talk about their sorrows. Regardless, he never thought that the princess would fall in love with his guard, and that she wanted to elope with his guard instead. With this, he noticed that the mage was now starting to believe his story, so he pushed the story even further as he adds that the princess's plans didn't go as she wanted, and to her surprise, she underestimated his guard's loyalty to him. Even when she tried everything to stop him, his guards still returned to his side. He brought back the princess's letter of resolution, but he couldn't warn him for the danger that was within. The princess was jealous of the prince, who gained the guard's loyalty, so she cursed the letter. From then on, the prince could only live like a skeleton, defamed by all. Thus, he is committed to lift the curse and avenge his guard. Now that he finished making up his backstory, he asked the mage if she could take on this task to fulfill his vengeance and regain his original appearance, to which she instantly bought his bullshit and was excited to help him find his guard so that they could reunite. But he instantly tells her that his guard died. To avoid the BL tag, she immediately loses interest, so to convince her again, he tells her that skeletons can exist, so it is easy for him to resurrect a dead man, which she is delighted to hear and regains her enthusiasm to help him. Now that she is fully convinced, she introduced herself as Bubble. After that, they are now in front of the gates of the main city, and the main character is walking confidently to enter the city. Still, the guard stops them to inform the mage that her pet skeleton needs to be leashed to enter the city, which he was shocked since he completely forgot about this. A few moments later, he finally entered the city with a leash on him. His master, being a newbie, was delighted to see all the amazing stuff inside the main city. He explained that all the players at level 20 would transfer to this city, since the Azure World's detail is almost the same as that of the real world. Yonya City, being located at the center of the east-west junction, it became the commercial and trading spot, so it is the most prosperous city in Azure. Then the mage notices that there are also a tea shop inside the city, which she was delighted to see. So the main character advises her to have one since Azure is connected to VR through brain waves, which can simulate taste. But unfortunately for her, she doesn't have any money, so the main character tells her not to worry and gave her a bag of coins that he stole from players, to further convince her that he is a prince, and with that she bought a milk tea, which she enjoys more than the real one. But their peaceful walk was suddenly disturbed by an adventurer shouting at an NPC who bumped into him, and now taking his anger out on the NPC, because he was infuriated that he was robbed by a skeleton before this. But the main character decided to mind his own business and was about to leave the scene, but to his surprise, Bubble is not beside him, and was now protecting the NPC. As high as her courage were, her level was opposite of that, since she is just a level 10 newbie. With this, the douchebag started to berate her and mock her, which made her flustered, but she knew she couldn't do anything. After that, the douche decides to leave, but to his surprise, the main character beat his ass and mock him the same way he mocked his master, and shows his level to them, shocking the douche's teammates. But before he could humiliate them even more, the girl NPC went to him and says her thanks, but she decides to take the matters with her own hands. As she went over to the player, threatens him to pay, which he still has the guts to ask why. So she decides to teach him a lesson he will never forget. and beat his ass up to oblivion. Now the Bubble and Skeleton understand that an NPC can be so cruel at times. After the beating, the player was handcuffed and taken to jail. In a change of scene, the three are now inside a cafe, discussing the matters that happened before. Bubble asks why she wasn't punished, which she explains that she knew the guard, so he definitely won't arrest her. And since they helped her, she introduced herself as Yuka and give the address of her fruit store to them, so if they need her, they could come and visit her there. After that, they went on their separate ways, and Skeleton and Bubbles are now walking outside. Skeleton tells her that it seems they encountered a hidden task, since Yuka gave them her address. She asks what a hidden task is, to which he explains that it is what she will come in contact with later. He advises her not to underestimate any NPC in Azure, because there are various hidden tasks and some even without any clues. For example, at the end of the third main story, she has to help an old man acquire a refinement skill and become an assassin master. And before he could give more examples to her, he noticed that they are finally in front of the transfer hall. Without hesitations, they went in. Now that they were inside the transfer hall, she was shocked, realizing that this game could be more realistic, as she noticed that they needed to line up to receive a number. Skeleton told her that it was still okay because, when there are more people, there will be more windows, so they don't need to wait that long. While they are waiting, Skeleton tells her that the 10th year anniversary main mission for Azure is definitely going to be the biggest it has ever been. During the 9th year anniversary, there was already a civil war between the eastern and western countries. Although it has already been 10 years, there are still a lot of new players entering, just like Bubbles, and she also logged in since she heard that this game would have a huge movement, so her classmate dragged her into playing. Then his number was called. Therefore, he went over to the counter and gave the right amount of materials so he could change class. His request was understood, so he was permitted to go to the class-changing ceremony without any problems. Meanwhile, Bubble was approached by a squirrel-looking dude, telling her she might have been tricked, because he is a know-it-all. So to him, his knowledge is always right, and since for many years, he has never seen a monster having a secret mission. Even if there was, it would be a Lord-class monsters with an intelligence and a super high level. So with a smug on his face, he tells her she was wrong, sends a friend request, and leaves the scene. With this strange interaction, the mage is now doubting Skeleton's identity. However, before she could even think harder about it, Skeleton has already finished his class-changing ceremony and is now in front of her with a new handsome face, and is looking like a snack. Bubbles unexpectedly was about to cry, so this concerned Skeleton, as he asked why, to which she explained what had happened. Without hesitation, Skeleton comforts her and treats her to some good food to eat, making her feel much better. Meanwhile, the squirrel is inside the bar enjoying his drink, shocked that Bubbles declined his friend request. He was planning to scare the Bubbles and see what's up with the monster she's with, but she didn't take the bait. But since a monster entered the city, there should be a lot of people aware of this, so he wasn't bothered by it so much and still excited what the future holds. At the same time, Bubbles is enjoying the food that Skeleton treats her with and chewing all the food she puts her hands on. Skeleton then tells her that he is going to help her upgrade and level up her job to prepare her to participate in the Deity Academy election, since only players at level 40 can participate in the entrance exam for the 3 major colleges of Azure each year. Former participants also have the opportunity to participate, with a chance to accumulate important clues and connections. The schools require way more skill and efficiency than normal self-training. There are also multiple legendary players and the NPC teaching. He is telling her this because something happened to him, right at the successful moment of his job change. He got a mail, which he was surprised that a monster could still have mail, but the contents of the mail surprised him even more, telling him that someone from the other side of this mail never would have thought a little monster changed his occupation so quickly, and asks if he wants to know why he transmigrated, and does he want to know how to return to the real world. So it tells him to go complete the main mission and his answer will be there, and wish him good luck, and it will be watching him. Remembering what happened made him furious, so he states loudly that he will win, and see who is really messing around. Bubbles unexpectedly respond happily, telling him that's the fighting spirit. She also needs to increase her fighting spirit, so she asks for more food. In contrast, he knows he will run out of money if she keeps eating like this. After eating inside the restaurant, they are now walking outside, but Bubbles is still eating her food, so Skeleton asks her to eat less. Although eating here won't make her fat, the food is very expensive. Even a rich owner can't keep up with her eating, to which she happily responds that she knows that, but ignores it. And to change the subject, she asks what they are going to do next. Skeleton states that later they will go to the Deity Academy election exam, and having someone like him as a pet with her current level is 10, she can practically get into the second exam with no problems. Next, they are going to focus on leveling her up, so she can be ready for the second exam that's 10 days away, which she was ecstatic to do. At a later time, at the 10-mile slope, skeletons, goblins, and the slimes are doing their best, constructing their new base, which surprises the main character after arriving, because of how fast their progress is, in that he just left for 3 days, but it seems that they are almost finished. While he is mesmerized by the new fortress, the skeleton notices them. Therefore, without hesitations, they charge at him. However, he dodges their attacks, and now he realizes they don't recognize him, so he teaches them a lesson. Now on the ground, the monster realizes that they can't win, but they still remember what their master taught them, so they decide to use their ultimate ability, which is retreating. Now everyone is out of sight and nowhere to be seen, which makes Bubbles surprised as she asks him if these are the monsters that he considers tamed. He responds that, from their command execution of escaping, if they can't beat the opponent, they are considered pretty tame. He then calls out to the fatty skeleton, instigating that he is their master, and commands them to stop hiding. The chunky skeleton heard him, so without hesitation, he excitedly came out from the ground, and immediately asked his master why he chose to transform. Therefore, they sat down and explained to him what had happened. Now Chunky know that Bubble is their boss's owner. He then asks Chunky how did they progress so fast, to which he explains that they realized that a goblin's HP and strength are stronger than theirs, so they gathered some goblins. After working together, they can already defeat players that are around level 30, but they found out that the chances of escaping aren't too high. Therefore, they built a fortress above ground, but that's only a disguise that acts as a bunker. After they have the bunker, they can quickly escape underground. Players have a hard time finding them. Even if they do find them, the players that enter the underground aren't familiar with the paths. They can choose to exit the underground and kill them. Hearing all this intricate plan, he is in disbelief as he asks if they are really monsters, to which Chunky replies that they all learned from the best, and that is him. He tells him to forget it since he even learned how to kiss ass. He then tells Chunky that this time, he is mainly here to level up with his master so they can prepare for the entrance exam that's coming up. Therefore, Chunky immediately offers that they can easily join hunting players with them, to which he earned a bonk for being a dumbass because Bubbles clearly don't do PK. Now that he knows Chunky does not have any bright ideas, Skeleton suggests that Chunky will take his subordinate monsters and Bubble to kill some other monsters to level up. During this time, he needs to get familiar with the skills and new body he has after the occupation transfer. They also need to wait for the Academy's entrance exam notice. Normally, pets that exceed the player's level will show signs of loyalty collapsing, but they don't need to worry about this. And under the circumstance that their levels have such a large gap difference, they should be able to receive a really good ranking. And now that he has finished explaining what to do, he encourages them to hurry and level up. Bubbles just need to level up to level 39, and there are no restrictions for pets. He will also try his best to increase his levels since there's temporarily no time to gather materials for a second transfer. The time passes by quickly, as they enjoy their time together, train, and the subordinates of the main character even manage to capture the knight who killed him before. A few moments passed by. A messenger pigeon arrived at their place to give Bubbles her entrance exam notice, which they happily received, while the knight was completely beaten and pinned to the ground. After opening the letter, Skeleton was surprised that there were so many strong players this year. He thought they were already strong enough, but they were actually ranked 9th. Seeing this, instead of being discouraged, he was excited, thinking this exam was going to be fun. Meanwhile, in the current world, Miss Chang, the secretary, brings the data that Chief Dong requested and puts it on his desk. She then asks him what happened to Wei Dong, one of their co-workers, because she hasn't seen him for a few days, to which he explained that Wei Dong was transferred to another department to perform some scientific technological experiments. so he won't be here in the meantime. His mom and dad, who were traveling around the world, were happy since their son won't bother them as much, and they happily cooperated with their son's arrangements. Chief Dong then asks her why she is suddenly caring about Wei Dong, and if she is thinking about him, to which she is so flustered to even respond, so she goes out while she is blushing. Meanwhile, a pink-haired girl named Schwer was standing in front of a mansion and was greeted by a beautiful lady, which Schwer calls her auntie. Then she welcomed her. Therefore, Schwer didn't hesitate to go upstairs to hang out with Bubbles. Coincidentally, Bubbles had just logged off from the game. Therefore, without hesitations, Schwer pounced on her and cuddled with her a little bit. Schwer then asks her if she is having fun playing Azure, to which Bubble happily tells her what happened to her inside Azure and the joyful adventures that she had in meeting Skeleton. So Schwer, after hearing this, made her curious. Therefore she asks Bubbles to tell more about this skeleton that she met, to which Bubbles immediately tells her Skeleton's made-up backstory, which she believes that it was true 100%. A few moments later, Schwer finished listening to Bubbles for a whole day, so she wonders if Bubble is dating the game characters, which she immediately denies to avoid being suspected as a weirdo, but Schwer doesn't mind, as she tells her to wait for her to finish her work. She will go in the game to find her, and see her little skeleton as well. After that, she leaves. Now alone in her room, she lies on her bed, thinking about the fun times she was in Azure, and she could only sigh, as she wished if only they were real, but she decides not to think about it, and go to sleep. But that wasn't what happened. A few moments later, at the 10-mile slope, inside the skeleton camp, Bubbles is staring intensely at Skeleton, to which he asks why did she come online at this time. She explained that she couldn't sleep, so she came to check. She made an excuse saying that she was scared that he was lying to her to sneakily ran away. Seeing that she is troubled, Skeleton sits down, and he replies, how could he lie to her, and comforts her by saying that he is always here. Hearing those words coming from him made her feel secure, so she slept easily. The next day, the year's examination ranking finally began. Thousands of people were gathered in one place, and many hustlers, businessmen, and scammers were selling their own stuff outside the entrance. Skeleton then explained to her that the applicants for the entrance exam are cut from 30,000 people to 2,000, and they limit the area and level, only choosing 30 people in the end. And every exam also affects the competition from all forces. The palace also opens live matches and guessing matches. Every exam is also a carnival for everyone. Seeing this familiar scene, he reminiscences before transforming. He was just the president of a small guild. He always watched the live broadcast, but this time he could finally come to the exam site. Suddenly they were greeted by Yuka, so they greeted her back. She proudly stated that she would take care of them. Now together, they went inside the temple. You can notice that Skeleton had been looking at the trashy manual all this time, so she advised him to look where he was going, in order for him to stop reading it. But he explained that these manuals were important, because inside are lots of information about the examiners. She tells him that a lot of the information in those manuals isn't accurate, and it's too late to study them. Many people study the information right after they are notified, so she throws away the book and offers her own made manual. And to his surprise, the manual is so detailed. Now he wonders how Yuka, an NPC, even know anything about the exam. A few moments later, they are now seated and waiting for Qilao to show up, so that the contest will begin. Soon after Qilao arrives, and although he is the top rank 5 power holder in the Azure world, he stumbles and plants his face on the ground, making the atmosphere awkward, as the others question his real power. The guard helped him get up, which he was thankful for. Then he started his speech, congratulating everyone who passed. However, every year there is the possibility of an outlier, so he encouraged everyone not to lose hope. This examination is separated into the first exam and the retest, and they are filled with aspects from wisdom, ability, and skill to test the player's ability. Next up, everyone can take their number plate and enter the first location. Since he decides he won't ramble on too much, they can begin. Therefore, the guard immediately opens the portal. Everyone already took their number plate, so the exam begins. The announcer started the broadcast of Azure's Deity Academy and welcomed all the viewers for the 10th entrance exam competition. After they introduced themselves, they explained the whole situation and that there are 2,000 participants in this exam, but only 30 will be chosen. The first trial consists of 3 sections: body, wisdom, and weapon. On the island, there are 500 corresponding items to each section. The player must collect at least 3 items to meet one of the standards. Once 2 standards are met, they will have passed. Because of the requirements, the players taking the exam must have their level below 40. Physical assessment needs to be collected, and lower grade players can only pass through teamwork. But the quantity of ghost minks, once teamed up, is not enough to be split up for everyone. So how would they choose? Next up is the assessment of the instrument. For players who need instrument expertise to assemble, every 3 parts can be assembled into a qualified part, and all these pieces come from a whole that has been broken into 500 pieces. Selectively and carefully finding the perfect pieces that will fit together isn't an easy task. The last is the test of wisdom. Scattered on the island are scrolls that need 3 of them to be gathered to complete a formation. Not only does this formation satisfy the exam standards, but it can also serve as transfer coordinates, becoming a crucial part of passing this exam. And now the players have already arrived on the island. What interesting events will happen this time? The announcer put all his energy into the exam to take a look to enjoy this fascinating game. Meanwhile, the ghost mink suddenly smelled the prey, so in an instant, it charged to attack, leaving a trail of blue flare. But unfortunately for it, its opponent was stronger than him. Therefore it turned into a popsicle, just like other ghost mink who came across Skeleton. While Skeleton didn't think that this mission would have him restraining this monster like this, it seems like a good chance to experiment with his new skills, and with a grin, he states that the game officially starts. Meanwhile, a group of low-ranking players is hiding in the bushes. The tiger lady tells them to listen to her. As she explained, the ghost mink is extremely fast, but its ability to turn and defense is weaker. Therefore, the first thing to do is they must model its course of action. And then, they can arrange for people to surround it, then attack it, but they have already waited for a couple of hours, and there has been no activity. Therefore they wonder if maybe they are in the wrong spot. The warrior reacts to what she said and asks if she doubts his battle sense. He expresses his scorn and warns her that he has a pretty bad temper, and if it weren't for the exam that didn't let him attack her, he would have beat her up already. After hearing this meathead talk, the cat lady backed up on her, saying what the tiger lady says makes sense. Also, she's an array mage, and only she can crack the formation. After waiting for a few more minutes, she is pretty quick on her feet, so she suggests that she will check the situation out first. The warrior tries to discourage her, but he is ignored. A few moments later, the warrior is squatting still, trying hard not to reveal his location while he is being pissed on by a dog. Suddenly the cat lady comes back and tells them that there is no need to hide, and there are no signs of a ghost mink within a 10-mile radius. She questioned a player who was passing by since the exam doesn't allow them to ask on the forums. Apparently, the mink has already been killed by a trainer, which really pissed the warrior since he was pissed on by a dog. In a change of scene, Skeleton is standing on the edge of a cliff. He notices something's wrong. He has walked around already, so he wonders why aren't there any ghost minks. He has only killed around 200 so far. At the same time, the announcer informs the viewers that they just received a message. In the 2 hours since the exam started, player, named I Want a Pink Bubbles, pet, with a level around 61, has killed over 200 ghost minks. Normally, players' levels are restricted to 40 and below, but pets don't have this limit, although they have never seen a pet's level being higher than its master's. As they all know, if the pet's level is too high, it'll lead to an inability to gain loyalty and will result in a backlash to the master. Meanwhile, Skeleton was visited by the cat lady, and she inquired since she heard he was selling minks, to which Skeleton gladly saw a customer. Therefore, he welcomes her as a hustler would and show her the goods. Now that the cat lady sees it with her own eyes, she immediately asks how much it costs, which he firmly states that it is 50 gold for 1 piece, and no bargaining. Hearing that it costs that much, the cat lady gets angry and calls him a scammer, since 1 gold equals $100 in real life. But Skeleton has that dog in him, so he swiftly diffuses the situation and carries her like a princess. Using what he learned from quantum physics, he tries to convince her with his riz. The cat lady tried to deflect it, but Skeleton was just too much for her, as he suggested that he would lower the price if she let him pet her for half a day, which she tried so hard to resist, but expectedly she failed. A few moments later, she came back to her teammates with her earned pelts. Then the warrior notices that she only got 6 pelts when they clearly have 3 people, so he asks why, to which she is baffled. How did he rank higher than her with that IQ of his? Therefore she clarifies to him, if they don't need to fight the ghost minks, why would they need the burden of bringing a soldier? To bring him, they need to break 3 formations, so she suggests to him to just stay here. Hearing this, the warrior now knows he is in deep shit, therefore he takes out his weapons, but unfortunately for him, they were a step ahead of him, so he was immediately bound by a tentacle, dropping his weapon, preventing him from retaliating. The cat lady tells him that, first of all, players in the initial test cannot attack each other. Even if she lets him out, he wouldn't be able to hurt them. But they can limit the player's movements. This is Han Lian's early formation, which was cast on his position earlier, since they were planning to abandon him after they finished battling the 6 minks anyways. She tells him that they are just abiding by the rules, and she hopes fate doesn't make them meet again, as they leave the place. Meanwhile, the other group is wondering why there aren't any ghost minks, so they assume that it is a bug, but suddenly, Skeleton appears before them, flashes them with his treasures, and asks them if they would like to buy some. Somewhere on the island, 2 contestants have now acquired 2 formation balls, and have almost cleared the level. They notice how interesting Skeleton is, so the woman asks Gu Jianxian if he wants to keep playing here for a bit longer, to which he responds that playing around in the first trial is a waste of time. The next level is the important one, therefore he hopes they can see that skeleton vampire in the next level. Then they notice some players have already cleared the level, so they decide to hurry up. At the same time, the announcer states that the leading hunters have already started clearing the level. However, 3 specific players have now rendered many other players unable to pass this level, because there are no more ghost minks to be hunted. Normally, 2 players work together to kill the ghost minks in order to collect device parts or break the formation, but today, many players are unable to fulfill the first requirement. Not only that, this monster's price range is indeed a bit too high, so they wonder what he want to do with all that money. Meanwhile, somewhere in the desert, where parts are lying on the ground, Bubble notices they got so much money all of a sudden, so she asks Yuko what she thinks Skeleton is doing, but she is busy and can't be bothered, since the exam for machine appliances is harder than she expected. There are so many parts. It's like a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle that's been mixed up and spread out across the desert plain, and find 3 of the puzzle pieces and combine them to form a part to clear the level. According to the information she has gathered previously, when a player finishes their strength exam, they'll come here to choose their device parts, and it would be easier to clear the level by working together with others. But it's already been so long, yet there are only this many players. Therefore she wonders why the others have not passed the strength exam yet. But little did she know, this outcome was because of their teammate, and now he is currently locking down on a prey to scam, and without hesitation, he sprinted over to them. However, a bear daddy suddenly stopped him, asking if he wanted a ghost mink pelt, just like what he was doing to the other contestants. Now that he is in front of another capitalist, he grasped that this big bear is the other reason why there are no more ghost minks to hunt. Therefore he is straightforward about it and asks him, to which the big bear responds that he only killed 100 of them, so there should still be more left. Meanwhile, the commentator announces that the 2 biggest bastards have finally met, and they are now on the edge of their seat, as they wonder what will come from the meeting of these 2 scumbags. And it seems that these 2 want the same customer, so they assume that they will fight. Meanwhile, Skeleton now realizes that there are barely any ghost minks left, while the big bear didn't think that there would be anyone else other than him in this round who would kill this many minks, so they got a little heated, and it seemed that they were about to engage in a fight, since they both sell ghost mink pelts. This outcome really hyped up the commentator since he assumes already that they're starting a fight, and these 2 rivals seem to be quite jealous of each other, because they're of the same industry but also an enemy, so without a doubt, these guys are about to fight. However, the assumptions of the commentator were absolutely off the mark, because now the 2 shake hands, since they both realize that it means that they, together, have monopolized the current mink pelt market. More than that, the price is their choice to make. Witnessing this, they could only wait for the chaos to come. Now they offer it to the nearest player and still sell the pelt for 50 gold to him. But right now, each player can only get 2 from them, If he wants 3, he will need to ask another player for help, and they can even give him a discount of 5 gold, and that discount can be stacked. The bear was amazed, but as expected, Skeleton has a quick brain. He even assumed Skeleton has done advertising before. At the same time, word spread about their business ventures, and because of that, players began gathering before them, while the commentators were astonished to witness it before their own eyes, since they had never seen this kind of situation in all their years of being a commentator. Before, there were players that had amazing skills to quickly slaughter multiple ghost minks, not worrying about the others. They would finish their own work and leave. Meanwhile, Bubble is having a fever seeing all the money add to her inventory. Now, she can probably drink milk tea until she dies, but Yuka having none of it, as she asks Bubbles to open her conversation panel with her pet. In a change of scene, Skeleton is selling pelts, while using his wrist to pick up girls at the same time. He then receives a call, so he picks it up, only to be yelled at by Yuka, telling him to hurry and get the heck over here, because without his cooperation, they won't be able to finish the second level, and the time will be over soon. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, other players are gathering in one spot. They are having trouble since they can't afford the pelts, and if they don't go to the second level now, there won't be enough time, and they will be stuck here, but they aren't able to attack Skeleton because his level is way too high. Suddenly, another player who is standing from the shadows suggests that if they can't attack, they can use other methods. They can all work together and take back what belongs to them. In a change of scene, Yuka is having a tantrum since Skeleton hasn't arrived yet. Coincidentally, Skeleton appeared, running hastily towards them, but unfortunately, he is being chased by a bunch of players, hunting him for what he has done, while the bear transformed to his second form as a snake, wrapping around Skeleton. As he was running, Bubble was within the crowd, confused about who are they chasing, and what they did do, so she asked, to which the player answered that she had better be careful of that pet up ahead, because he's a thief. He killed all the ghost minks, and demanded to sell them for ridiculously high prices. Who knows what kind of master trained him into such a corrupt pet? Hearing all this, she realizes that they are chasing her pet Skeleton. A few moments later, Skeleton is tired of all this, so he decides to use his ability that he wanted to reveal later. Therefore he stops running, faces the crowd, points his palm towards them, and uses his ice bomb ability by creating ice in front of them and breaking it in just a second, making a dust cloud in order for them to escape. Now that he is hiding behind a boulder, just like an NPC, he explained how he perfectly executes his ability, saying that it is by utilizing the water element, he can control the coldness around him as a skeleton and make the water around form into a trap. He made the water element suddenly explode into an ice bomb. Now, his first skill has been shown, while the big bear, who is a snake right now, asks how much time he thinks they have, so he suggests to stop blabbering and run. A few moments later, Yuka barely obtained 20 device parts, and they only had 7 hours left. There isn't enough time, and she sees that Bubble is trying to help, but she knows that without a mechanic's skill, she will have no way of putting these device parts together, so she tells her to stop fooling around and take the gears off her hands. Suddenly, Skeleton just returned with Big Bear, but Yuka was stressed out since they might fail the second level because of how greedy Skeleton was. Therefore she scolds him, and the bear with him. After her tantrum, now that she has cooled down, she tells them there's only one other option right now, so she explained that she observed some device parts earlier, and they have a pattern. Although the parts put together have nothing in common, if they break these parts into smaller components, they can remake them into a suitable device. Although, she is not sure if they can remake them to their original state. She then orders Skeleton to continue looking for the remaining device parts. After he has found them, he has to give them to her robot helper, and they must not give up on collecting parts. Now that Skeleton is collecting the parts, Bear asks to let him join because there is nothing for him better to do, and he is just waiting for his daughter-in-law, that is an array mage, to arrive here, since they promised to meet here after killing the minks. But before they could continue to collect the parts, the masked man from before appeared before them. Therefore, Skeleton asks if he is just like the other players, who want revenge, to which the masked man clarifies that he has come here to notify them. Some players have discovered where he is and are coming for him, and he declares that he can help Skeleton stop them. Like a scammer, He can smell the same species as him from a mile away, so he asks why help him, to which the masked man explains that it is because of him. A high-level pet raises his suspicions for him having connections to this year's main task, so befriending him shouldn't come to any harm. Hearing all this bullshit coming out of the masked man's mouth made him think. Therefore, he accepted the masked man's proposal and split up with his group to distract the parade of players. Earlier, before the meeting with Skeleton, Cat Lady reported to the masked man named Yiwu that they had leaked the location of Bubbles' pet and group to the other players as he had directed them to. Then she asks why he would want to befriend the skeleton, but stir anger within the other players to attack him, to which he answers that it is because there must be a reason to befriend him. Of course, other people must have already taken note of him. He was so greedy after all. But he's not the only one who has the ability to kill so many ghost minks. He also hunted most of them to let this first exam reduce the passing rate the most. Meanwhile, the commentator is wondering if Yawu knows that this is a live broadcast, because he literally just said that he pissed off all of the players on purpose. But he is the successor of an assassin alliance, so it's better for them not to question him. Now in the present, Bubbles and her companion are traveling the desert. They then decide to rest there, while looking for other players, since Yuka said that there are assembling parts around here, and other players may go to her spot. So Skeleton told them to hold the players back to the best of their abilities, to not allow any players to bother her. Speaking of Skeleton, the bear asks Bubbles why his level is way higher than hers, and how did she catch him, to which she tries to dodge the question by ignoring the bear, but the bear kindly asks what the problem is, to which she explains that it is because Skeleton told her to not reveal his identity. Hearing her excuse, the bear concludes, without a doubt, her pet's identity is indeed exceptional, so he knows he needs to think of a way to be on friendly terms with him. That way, he might get some clues. While Bubble is sitting proudly, because she accomplished what Skeleton has told her, and that is if they ask her about his identity, then she can act as mysterious as possible. These top players all have paranoid personalities. The more they can understand, the friendlier they'll be to them, so they can get more information. Meanwhile, the cat lady found them. Therefore, she immediately informed the other players about their location. In an instant, they have surrounded Bubbles and Bear, trying to convince her to hand over her pet, but suddenly, they were all bounded by Yiwu, while Skeleton used his ice ability to fend off the other players. Using his abilities constantly, he is running out of HP, and too many people are left. He states that he won't be able to escape if he is trapped. Seeing that Skeleton is struggling, Yiwu tells him to come over to him, since he has got the players under control. Therefore, Skeleton did just that, but suddenly he acted like he lost control of his abilities and cancelled it, just to see whether this pet would surprise him more once he's faced with death. Now Skeleton and Bubbles are in a pinch. While they are surrounded, Bear is thinking if he should risk his life for some unknown information, because it'll be troublesome if he can't get out of this. However, before he makes a decision, Bubbles had enough of all of this, so she decides not to pretend anymore. So she raises her wand to summon her pet, casting a summoning circle in front of them. A level 55 slime appeared before them, shocking everyone who witnessed it. This even surprised the commentators, because they didn't expect her, a level 10 newbie, to have two pets, and it's a high-level slime. So it seems like she continued to add points to her taming skills on the transfer and even added an extra slot for a pet. But training another pet will take a lot of time and money, so it's clearly not beneficial, and it's a level 55 slime at that. Meanwhile, the priest can't hold it anymore. He states that he needs to beat her to death, because he has never suffered such humiliation in his whole life, summoning a slime as an opponent. So he asks if she thinks that slime can defeat him, to which she answers by showing it to them personally, and throws her slime in front of them, to suddenly transform into a Giga slime, scaring everyone, even the commentators. Meanwhile, Skeleton is now cornered by players on all sides, so he states that he can only release that attack. So Yiwu is excited to see if Skeleton is going to show his trump card now, but to his surprise, he just called Bubbles and tell her to take him back to the pet space, to which she gladly did. He then smiled at Yiwu, mocking him, while he was being teleported. Now Yiwu is in an awkward situation, and the players are angry at him for using them, to which he still tries to bullshit his way out. But unfortunately, that won't work for the second time. At the same time, The commentators laugh at Yiwu, because they didn't expect someone as proficient in calculating as him to just be screwed over by a pet. In a scene change, Skeleton returned to his master's side, just like what the other players requested from her. So now Bubbles asks if there is anything else they need, but as expected, seeing all the high-level pets she has, they all cower away, leaving only the priest, who is somewhat the leader of the gang. Now that he was all alone, he could only ask the slime if he could touch its masculine pectorals. A few moments later, the slime has tied up a few players who fought them, while Yuka is still doing her best to reassemble the device. A few moments more, she finished it, even surprising the commentator, stating that she is too strong, because she manages to disassemble the pieces of the device and reassemble them into a new device. She then states that they still need to make one more to pass, and lots of players are probably distracted by Yiwu, so they can rest for a bit. While working, she asks Skeleton why did he sell all those pelts? They almost didn't make it, to which he reasons that, according to the amount he killed, it should have been enough for some players to come and help her. However, he didn't expect there to be another shameless person like him. But even taking into account the number of ghost minks he and Big Bear killed, there should be a number of players who can pass. But currently, it seems like someone else probably killed more ghost minks but didn't even bother selling them. It should have been calculated already. This means they have an array mage who isn't at this stage right now. Array mages are rarely seen participating as they're the most difficult to cultivate. Because of this, their standards for passing are also the easiest. And while he is explaining all this, someone teleported in front of them again. Therefore Skeleton was about to turn the bitch into a popsicle, but Big Bear stopped him. He then introduced her to be his daughter-in-law, and she just finished her array exam and came to find him. So she means no harm. He was half right about her being no harm, but it was only to them, while to him, not so much, as she tells Big Bear to kneel. So he immediately did, and now that he is closer to her, she bites his ear, while letting out her anger, because of what Big Bear put her through. After the sweet reunion, she tells Skeleton about something, but he can't hear her, because she's shy when talking to strangers. So Big Bear tells it for her, informing Skeleton that he has something on him, and it's a formation spell with something like a tracker, and with just a hand gesture, she breaks all the formation spell that is on Skeleton. After that, she started being shy again. Skeleton then thanks them, and now he knows why those players always seem to find him. But then he wonders who could have put a formation spell on him, and the only player he has interacted with a lot is that cat, so he concludes that it was her. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have been so cheap. After that, Big Bear and his daughter-in-law decided to leave first, so they said their goodbyes, and promised to meet later. A few moments passed by. Yuka finally finished the device. Now they had all the items to pass the level, while Kitty and the others found their locations and are trying to stop them. However, they were too late. Now Skeleton and his crew are about to be teleported to the next level, but before it was completed, he calls out to Kitty and throws all the pelts into the air, while he smiles coldly, as he states that they will settle their grievances at the next level. After completing the level, they teleported to a beach resort, where players rest after the stressful level, which Bubbles liked very much. They were then greeted by Big Bear, who was enjoying his time also. Meanwhile, an NPC gives them a swimsuit to wear for the occasion and wait for the other players to arrive, which Bubbles is hoping to swim. However, Skeleton tells her not to since there isn't enough time for that, which he was right because the commentator starts their countdown, and after that the preliminaries ended, so they welcome all the 28 players who passed the test to the core location of the retest. Then the commentator explained their situation, saying that, technically, they all could pass without being caught, with the limit being 30 people, but the retest would still occur. The winner of the retest will receive the grand prize, and that prize is clues to the new main quest. The ranking will determine whether they can receive the school's resources and guidance from teachers. After they were done, they started the exam, which is labeled as the Island Werewolf, and since they saw Bubbles being clueless as always, they had their chances to explain the rules to them, stating that the test is split into daytime and nighttime. During the day, no one is allowed to fight. They can make alliances that will be important in the future, and this will be explained further later. Right now, their numbers have been mixed up and will be randomly distributed to every player. They will get another player's number plate, and this exam uses a point system. If they can take back the number that belongs to them, they will get 10 points. Numbers taken that are not their own will only give them 1 point. During the nighttime, they can choose one type of energy skill from these 3 energies to launch. Only one energy skill can be launched per night, and they can't reuse the same energy skill. With the Prophet's ability, they can check the numbers of 3 players, but if they choose to be a Prophet, they will lose all defensive abilities and become weaker. Players who choose to become a werewolf will receive an enhanced buff, making them go into berserk mode, doubling their abilities. Once succeeding in hunting down a player, the hunter will receive the number plate of the victim they hunted. If a target has multiple number plates, a successful attack must specify the number plate the attacker wants. Otherwise, they will be given a plate randomly. If multiple players attack a single player at the same time, every successful attacker will receive a number plate. By choosing to become a guard, one will enter closure mode. This time, the player is to stay in their own house, unless there is contact during the day. Otherwise, any attack or hunting will be rendered useless during this time. In the daytime, everyone can choose to ally together or exchange number plate information. A request for an alliance can allow the partners to enter each other's homes, although everyone should take caution as their allies may try to steal their number plates as well. There will be a total of 10 days in this cycle. After these 10 days, the admin will collect data to determine the rankings. If they go 3 nights without a number plate, the player will be eliminated. If a player doesn't have a number plate and receives 2 attacks in 1 night, they will also be eliminated. However, at the same time, players can have fun during the day. There are waiters who they can communicate with. They will try to ensure that everyone's needs are taken care of and satisfied, so the commentators advise not to waste any more time, and those who still have questions about the rules may ask the waiters. After their explanations, they said their goodbyes and will be waiting for their results. Meanwhile, everyone can return to their homes to find out their assigned numbers, since every night, they will all be hunters, as well as prey. At a later time, Kitty is ecstatic to receive a werewolf enhancement, and since she knows it is impossible to form an alliance on the first night, she assumes that mages will choose to guard this card. The top players are too challenging to hunt as they are basically all seeded players of major unions, and warriors should choose to be a werewolf or a prophet, which ranks lower. Now that she got the gist of it, she looked for an opponent to kill first, but to her surprise, someone was already after her, and that someone was Skeleton and Bubbles, because she purposely stuck a piece of tracking information on them, which they weren't fond of. Completely suppressed, she uses her ultimate skill, just like her master would, so she tries her best to bullshit her way out of the situation. But unfortunately for her, Skeleton doesn't care about her reasons, because she is his target in the first place. He then comes closer to her, since he believes that she can't beat him even if she doubles her attributes, and since he has that forbidden riz in him, he suggests that she hands her number plate over herself, or he will search her body. But before she could even respond, he ordered Bubble to help him riz train her. A few moments later, Kitty is now cutely wearing a dress, trembling with embarrassment, and while Skeleton is playing with her, now humiliated, she throws a fit with her dress, and since they already have her number, she asks them to leave. Fortunately, Skeleton is not done playing with her, so he obeys her request, but he warns her that they will visit again in a few days, and tells her that he will personally ask the attendants how many princess dresses they have in her size, for their future role play. With this aftermath, she is now questioning her life choices. Meanwhile, the commentators are having fun witnessing this drama happen live. At the same time, they pity Kitty since this was broadcasted live worldwide, and after a few good laughs, they then decide to take a look at the other player's situation. So they went over to look at Cyan, who chose the Prophet's skill to check the number plates of several players. Unfortunately, his number plate was already taken by Guling. Basically, the top-ranking players are attacking, and the lower-ranking players are defending. The confrontation period for today, the first night, is 2 hours, so it is almost over. The next day, luxurious foods are placed on the table, and Skeleton and Bubbles are now in their swimming wear. They then were greeted by Yuka and Big Bear, so they talk about forming alliances, but since they can only make one alliance per night, they need to share more information and then determine the order of forming alliances, and also determine the offensive and defensive targets. Yuka then suggests to share their number plate information with each other. so that if one of them has the other's number plate, they can exchange first. After all, in cooperation, trust is the key. Therefore, they did just that. Now that they know each other's number plates, they then plan to determine which cards to use first, to then strategically decide the targets since they can't select the same card skill the next day. Then during the daytime, they need to communicate with other players in order to get more information about their plate numbers. Hearing all this, Skeleton agrees with them. However, there are only 4 hours allotted for rest during the daytime. Before doing all of that, he agreed to go swimming in the ocean with Bubbles first, so he did just that. A few moments later, Gu-Ling appeared in front of Bubbles and Skeleton, and decided to ask to exchange information on the cards they possess, and suggest establishing an alliance as well. However, he was ignored since Skeleton is busy apologizing to Bubbles, forcing her to swim, almost drowning her accidentally because he didn't know she can't swim. So to show sincerity in his apology, he offered to teach her how to swim later, while Gu-Ling is still trying to get their attention. Soon after they noticed Gu-Ling's presence, so Skeleton asked who he is, to which he gladly reintroduced himself, and told them what his intent was. Now that Skeleton knew what he wanted, he suggests to discuss the matter somewhere private, so they did just that. But before that, he helps Bubbles get up, since she is still a bit mad about what happened, while ignoring Gu-Ling's presence again. They then arrive at Gu-Ling's place, where Jiang Liyue is enjoying her alone time reading books, while Skeleton and Bubbles are astounded by her beauty. She then asks condescendingly if she is in front of the strong pet that caused a lot of chaos during the preliminaries, which Skeleton was stupid to notice, so he perceives it as a compliment and acts humbly. At the same time, the two remind him that it wasn't a compliment. After introducing themselves, Gu-Ling explained why he wanted to form an alliance with them. So Gu-Ling stated that everyone is looking to win. The primary thing they need to complete is to gain the most hunting points in 10 rounds, because skills cannot be reused 2 nights in a row. The maximum points a single player can obtain in 10 rounds is 14, given that every kill is successful. So, they are hoping to form an alliance with Bubbles and Skeleton, so that they can share information with them and cooperate with Gu-Ling to obtain higher points. Skeleton is confused by Gu-Ling's suggestions, since he was asking for an alliance, but it turns into just helping Gu-Ling instead. Therefore Gu-Ling takes out his sword to explain, and because of this, he is almost invincible, and he adds that if he wins the main task, he can share with them 2 suitable amount of information. If possible, he also wants to recruit Bubbles into their union. Meanwhile, Bubbles is clueless about the broken sword in front of her, so she asks, what can it do? Therefore, Skeleton explained that the reward of the 3rd main task is the magical Xianyuan sword artifact. One of the enchantments should be quadrupling its own properties. The Xianyuan Society actually brought out this divine tool for Gu-Ling. In other words, Gu-Ling can always be in a double werewolf mode. Even if he picks the Prophet card, he can still easily kill ordinary werewolves. Seeing that Skeleton is even aware of this, they were amazed, but still look at him as a pet. So he asks Bubbles if she could bring this pet to join their union. They would be glad to collect him, which strike a nerve within Bubbles, but she didn't respond and lets them talk first. So they add that they also have another one of these main task artifacts. As members of the largest trade union in Azure, this examination is just a process for them to go through. Therefore they try to convince her to join Xianyuan, stating that he can guarantee that they will treat them well, since he is Xuanyuan's first seated successor. A few moments later, the meeting was done, so Bubbles and Skeleton is now outside. Bubbles notices Skeleton is in deep thought, so she asks him, what's the matter? To which he responds that, as he expected, there's a wide gap between them and a big union. Therefore, he realized that he was too naive before, thinking that he could win on his own. After joining Xianyuan, they can easily gain money and reputation. Spouting all this nonsense earned him a bonk from Bubbles, as she asked what he was talking about, and why they had to join Gu-Ling's union. Aren't they pretty happy with what they had now? They just got a clue. If they can't get it, they will just work hard in a different direction. Plus, they treated him as an object and wanted to store him or something, which she didn't like hearing, because, during this time, she was really happy. Honestly, her health isn't good, so she can't drink milk tea or eat a lot. In Azure, she ate a lot, explored a lot, and even saw the sea today. It's her first time seeing it. No matter how big the union is, It does not matter to her, because the important thing is whom you experience the task with. So, she asks for them to work hard together and calls him Skeleton Prince. After hearing all this coming from Bubbles, he now knows this is her first time seeing the sea, so no wonder she couldn't swim, to which she was angry that he brought it up again. But their sweet conversation was interrupted by someone, telling them that their miss has something she wants to say to them. So with haste, the miss went over to Bubbles and asked if her skeleton pet was for sale. If that was the case, she could pay with cash. Hearing the audacity of this bitch to ask this kind of nonsense, Bubbles loudly asks if she is crazy, while she can't believe she met people who want to collect her pet while the other wants to buy, on the same day at that. So Bubbles asks her rhetorically if she thinks she can buy anything she wants with her money. She puts a price of 100 million won on Skeleton, and challenge her to buy him then, but to Bubbles' surprise, she agrees. But Bubbles do not plan to sell Skeleton to anyone, so she just leave and ignore them, while the bitch still thinks she can buy whatever she takes a fancy to. In a change of scene, Bubbles is now having a tantrum about what happened earlier, while Skeleton has a bright idea to let Bubbles sell him since his level is much higher than the miss. After being sold to her, he can sneak back, then she can sell to her again, which Bubbles was irritated to hear such a plan. Meanwhile, Big Bear returns and tell them that something's wrong, because the front row is filled with big union members who are looking to win over the players behind them, while those players who don't belong to big unions basically bought their mink fur at high prices to clear the level, so they wouldn't cooperate with them no matter what. After giving the bad news to them, he then asks Skeleton what happened to their side, to which Skeleton explains all that happened, shocking Big Bear that someone was willing to buy a pet for 100 million, so he asks if that woman wants a bear too, and he can also turn into a snake, which he offers up as a bundle. However, he soon realized that was a mistake, so he changed the subject. Soon after, Yuka brought 2 helpers with her. Quanta then directly approached Skeleton and got a sniff of him. Weirded out, Skeleton asked what it was for, which he blushed and responded that there was a scent of her mother on his body. Confused, implying that Skeleton did Quantu's mother. Still, before he could ask, Yuka explained to Skeleton that Quantu was raised by wild monsters, so it probably means that there's a scent of wild monsters coming from his body, which he nodded to confirm. After that, they then introduced themselves, but before they could talk further, Yiwu asked everyone to come to gather at the square because he has something to say. Intrigued about what was going on, they gathered to see what bullshit he had to spew out of his mouth. So now that everyone had gathered in one place, Yiwu stated that he has thought about this carefully, since this game requires all of them to be open and honest. If everyone shared their number plates with each other and no longer attacked each other, then that ensures that everyone would have 10 points. That way, everyone is first. As an example, he has already returned the Tiger Lady's number plate back to her, and he hopes everyone can join his camp, because he has a dream. He wants everyone to hold hands and all be first place, so he asks his brothers and sisters to come and join him. And then he adds that, if they don't exchange their number plates, they will find it difficult to surpass Tiger Lady's score, while Gu Ling is on the side and is sick of seeing that ye freak scam players again. At the same time, Skeleton and Bubbles decide to go back to their place, while Bubbles think that what Yiwu is saying does make some sense, to which Skeleton disagrees and explains that she is mistaken, because Yiwu is just trying to fool people. Since why would someone with 2 cards which had successfully hunted the first night bother exchanging cards? Plus, if a big guild wins and receives clues to the main mission, they can use the clues to prepare in advance, exchange for money and time, and pay closer attention. They'll be on a completely different level compared to normal players. Yiwu knows this better than anyone, but if he gives all players 10 points, it'll be much harder for them to hunt. There will be 5 opportunities to hunt, which means they must accurately determine where their number plate is, or they will lose. Yiwu is treating this competition like a game of chess. He is not thinking of winning, but instead about how he can make the game more chaotic. And for the big guilds, a pretty magical pet is a mere toy to collect and play with. But one of Skeleton's favorite books said, weakness and ignorance are not obstacles to survival, arrogance is. They dare to look down on him like a little pet, so he will overturn the chessboard for them. At a later time, Bubbles is using his card ability as a prophet to look at the opponent's information. Now they know the number plates of Gu Ling and Jiang Liyue. Next, They need to confirm the players behind those number plates tomorrow, and since they chose the Prophet tonight, they will have to stay shut in together. Skeleton then asks Bear to help him decide which princess dress is cuter, to which Big Bear, with a serious look, asks Skeleton what he is doing, but still give out a suggestion. After that, they decide to play and enjoy their time together. The next day, Big Bear's daughter-in-law is shocked to see what happened to him, to which he explains that he was playing cards with them last night, and he didn't win a single round. Soon after, Yuka excitedly informed them that she got Gu Ling's number plate. Yuka suddenly returned back to where Skeleton is, and was excited to inform them that she got Gu Ling's number plate. She got this number plate yesterday since she chose the werewolf card and went to kill the player with the 1900 number plate, the grasshopper player, and in his hands, he actually was assigned the number 1 card, but to their surprise, Gu Ling was behind her, telling her that he is grateful that she helped him find it, and he adds that yesterday he chose the prophecy card and was surprised to coincidentally find where number 8, her card number, was located. With this, he suggests for them to set the price. However, unexpectedly, Yuka did not care at what he just said, telling him to set his fucking ass, as she asks who raised him to become spoiled like this. And as expected, Gu Ling was clueless why she is hostile towards him. Therefore she clarifies what she felt about him, intruding on others' affairs without prior notice, acting all spoiled because he is part of an influential union. But unfortunately, she doesn't care about any of that, so even if she want to throw his number card away, she won't give it to him, while the others felt satisfied, seeing Gu Ling also has times where he is yelled at like this. At the same time, Gu Ling felt disrespected, so he decided that he would just have to get his number card by himself. But before he could walk away, Yuka stopped him, because now that she was done yelling, they still needed to do business. So, she tells him that she can give him his number card as long as a few conditions are met. First, he must get Bubbles and her number card to them afterward. Second, after the preliminaries, they want to join Shan Yuan as external elders. With just these conditions, he accepts it, and therefore he receives his number. Since she planned to trade in the first place, he asks why did she feel the need to yell at him in the beginning. He was never yelled like that before, to which she tells him to shut up, because she just wanted to do it, while the commentators were stupefied because they couldn't believe that they gave Gu Ling his number card just like that. Now, Gu Ling, who owns the Sword of Shan Yuan, will have an unlimited advantage over the other players. Now the commentators are doubting if they really are against Gu Ling. A few moments later, Skeleton and his group are now planning their next move. So Skeleton suggests that they should first leak the information that Gu Ling has gotten his number card to all the other players. Then Xiao Bao will go find the person that saw the number card that Gu Ling has in his hands, and ask him whether he would like to form an alliance. And he will go find Cece and Saiyan to trade some information. Everyone will move independently, and with this plan, everyone agrees. Now the commentator made an assumption on what they are planning to do. Since Skeleton and his companions couldn't counter a player like Gu Ling, who owns the Sword of Shan Yuan, and Jiang Haiyu, who owns another godly artifact, by them alone, during this time, they will need to ally with other players. However, players will only agree to ally together when Gu Ling's points are leading enormously, because human beings will only ally closely with each other when they face a bigger threat. In Azure, there are NPCs with high intelligence who also participate in the competition. However, this particular NPC must have a super high intelligence level, seeing how he responded so quickly to take advantage of a number card right after getting it. Due to Yuka yelling at Gu Ling, her popularity rose exponentially on the off-site popularity chart, and she is currently in first place. Normally, high-intelligence NPCs would only appear once every few years. However, this year, there are 3 of them in the top 10. On top of that, there is also a very shameless pet this year. With this happening before their eyes, they look forward to the competition and wonder who the final winner will be. Meanwhile, inside room number 7, The girl before is now more than happy that Skeleton has finally decided to look for her by himself. And because Skeleton has that uncontrollable riz in him, she promises him that she can give him a lot of things and treat him better than his current owner, while even Skeleton couldn't handle her horniness, as he tries to clarify to her that he and Bubbles are not in a master and pet relationship, but are best friends and have experienced many things together. With this, she claims that she understood, so under these circumstances, she just needed to add more money, which made Skeleton agitated because she did not understand anything. He then tells her what he is here for, so he convinces her by saying that if they make an alliance this time, then there will still be a lot of smart pets like him. Hearing this come out of his mouth made her come to her senses. Now she is hornier than ever, therefore she quickly accepts his offer, and she states that he could even use all her subordinates. While Skeleton is just excited that now he can add money to his bank without his dignity being taken away. The next day, Kitty is now comfortably lying on Skeleton's lap, while Skeleton is writing the data on the events that happened. To help in making a plan, Big Bear then asks why he only brought back a lady and a cat. With this question, Skeleton notices that Bubbles is quite furious. Therefore, Skeleton tries to defuse the situation by explaining to them what happened. And this kitty, which he is petting comfortably, he found her while searching for Yu for an alliance, but in actuality, he has met Yu and was able to tell him that they have to team up. But in his plan, he also needs something else, which is he needs the cat to help him with spying. However, Yu knows Skeleton just wants to pet the cat, therefore, he just lets him take her. Now in the present, Skeleton notices that Kitty is slowly adjusting to her role. Soon after, Yuka comes back to show Skeleton the list of people allying with them, which he is not sure if this is enough people for now, while Kitty asks why he stopped petting. With these words coming out of her mouth, she soon realizes that she had become submissive. Therefore, she blames it on the Azure sensory device for being so realistic that she has become like a cat. Now she decided to better wake up, but she changed her mind since Skeleton continued petting her, using his highly skilled hand techniques, while she convinced herself that she was not leaving the game, not because she liked it, but it is because leaving the game would result in forfeiting from the event, and it took so much work to get here, so she would just endure it and let Skeleton pet her. At the same time, Quantu returned, and so he saw what Skeleton and Kitty were doing, but before he could say anything, Skeleton asked if he had contacted Saiyan's side, which he reported that it had been done, and because of that, he asks for a reward, asking Skeleton if he could also pet him. And because it was a request from his subordinate, Skeleton did just that. With this, Quantu was delighted, and he even boasted to his companion that his mommy just praised him, while Skeleton is clarifying to him that he is not his mommy. Now that everyone is gathered, he tells them that tonight, everyone will go confirm Gu Ling and Jiang Liu's card choice and situation. Once they confirm that they are in a good position to hunt, everyone will attack together, and when their opponents retaliate, it will be tricky for them to borrow defenses from their allies. At a later time, someone confirmed Gu Ling's status. Therefore, they were alerted to attack him now, and with this, he chose to become a werewolf and hunt the opponent, Gu Ling. In a change of scene, Gu Ling is sitting inside his room, menacingly. As he hears footsteps near his place, he greets them confidently, telling them he knew this would happen the moment they gave him the plate number, but it would be foolish to refuse either way. He then sighs, as he states that he should just destroy them all already, because if he doesn't kill them all at once, they will never know the difference in their abilities. He then asks Skeleton how many people are present, and assures him that he didn't ally with anyone, to which Skeleton does just that, informing Gu Ling that it is 19 versus 1, and claims that they will take him down tonight. With this many people with Skeleton, Gu Ling, therefore, made an assumption about what they were planning to do, so without hesitations, he went to attack Skeleton first, attacking him from behind. However, thankfully, Quantum matched the speed of Gu Ling, so he successfully blocked the attack by sacrificing his hands. And since he has a fast regeneration ability, it wasn't a problem to him. Skeleton then assures Quantu that he could catch up with Gu Ling's speed too, and as expected, the Shanyuan sword is really strong. However, there are a total of 5 seals, so it takes 5 turns before it can strike again. Therefore he took a deep breath, covering himself with ice, in order for him to reveal his true form. Now, he could be as fast as Gu Ling did, attacking him at all sides, but to his surprise, the Shanyuan sword automatically blocked all his attacks. However, it is fine, as he originally intended to attack the sword, while Gu Ling is oblivious to what is happening, and is busy praising Skeleton for having such a skilled combat sense that even a veteran player can't match. Skeleton then humbled him by telling Gu Ling that he just outsmarted him without him even realizing it, explaining that the places he hits will freeze. Therefore, the frost successfully slowed down the speed of the Shanyuan sword. Realizing what happened, Gu Ling acknowledges Skeleton to be a threat, so he moves faster than his sword, instantly separating Skeleton's arm, successfully harming him. He then boasts about what he plans to do next. However, Skeleton reminds him that he can reinstall Bones at will, in his current form, while mocking him that he failed. Now that Gu Ling realizes that he was not taken seriously, made him agitated, and so he is more determined to shatter his bones until nothing is left. But Skeleton ignores him since he is busy asking his teammates if they are done preparing. Now Gu Ling realizes that Skeleton was just a distraction. Therefore he notices the other players merging their aura inside a box, which the commentator explains that the item they are using is the Pandora's box. It is a main artifact of the West. Although it can't compete with pure combat items like the Shanyuan sword, it has a very important ability called Sacrifice. Sacrifices can voluntarily exchange attribute points and concentrate them on one player. However, there are many restrictions and side effects. With this, Gu Ling knows he just fucked up, as he asks Saiyan if he is out of his mind, because after the sacrifice, he and these players will be destroyed within 10 hours, and so they won't be able to continue participating in this competition. However, this does not concern Saiyan even for a bit, because he has calculated his strength. Their guild still has teammates and can continue to compete. And since the conditions laid forth by this pet skeleton are really amazing, he couldn't ignore it, because after failing the previous main mission, the Western forces have not raised their heads until now. And what can be better than allowing him to kill and eliminate Gu Ling himself? So he asks Gu Ling if there is any plan more attractive than this. Now that Gu Ling is convinced that Saiyan will not back down, he attempts to discourage him by belittling his class as a priest, and how foolish it is to attempt fighting someone like him. So he is set to kill Saiyan first. However, he was soon reminded that he is now fighting 2 opponents by getting clapped by Skeleton from behind. Now that he is pinned on the ground, Gu Ling decides to go all out. Therefore he breaks the hammer that Skeleton made, and immediately attacks Skeleton. Fortunately, Saiyan blocked it, while the other players was amazed by the power of these two, now exceeding their level by way too much. While the commentator is more than ecstatic to witness the confrontation of the 2 artifacts, even though they are being wielded by 2 young players. The last time it was this lively also occurred during a national war. However, even if Saiyan is a priest, he was originally trained to be a Union combat commander. At the same time, Saiyan decided to transform his cross shield into a sword and use Gu Ling's Eastern Green Lotus sword art, surprising Gu Ling entirely. He even brags that it isn't strange for a priest to know some of their swordsmanship, while the onlookers are in awe, as they expected from a genius successor. The skill training in Azure is synchronized with his nerves. Only the simplest moves and skills can be used when connected to the nerves. Synchronizing requires a lot of practice. Their methods here are almost to the level of professional PvP players. But what a pity, since Gu Ling's talent is definitely greater than that of Saiyan. Now Saiyan's sword went flying out of his hand, so Gu Ling was about to land the killing blow. However, Skeleton was just waiting for him to let his guard down. Unexpectedly, Guling was doing the same. Now he successfully pierced the bones directly, but unfortunately for Guling, Skeleton has few tricks up on his sleeves. Therefore, Skeleton manages to land an attack by using his severed arm, and like he said before, the places he hit will freeze. Now that Guling is slowed, Big Bear and Yiwu manages to tangle Guling's movement. With this, Guling soon realizes all the previous delays were paving the way for these two seemingly joke of an attack, just to freeze and control him for this moment. Without further delay, Saiyan lands the final blow, completing his revenge. While the commentator states that the Xian Yuan sword will fail to work for 3 days if it is out of its sheath without seeing blood. If he is attacked multiple times in one night, Guling will be eliminated. Meanwhile, at Kunlun Mountain, inside the Xian Yuan headquarters, the elders saw everything that happened during the trial. The battle NPC was amazed at how their disciple was eliminated in such a way. On the other hand, the Holy Infant player was agitated, as she orders to find the origins of this mysterious skeleton, since she was still in denial of what happened, while the others are now contemplating to reconsider Guling's position as the first-seated successor, and since he was careless, he will definitely be laughed at by the ones in the West. At the same time, the other players that the main character was with, before he transmigrated, are now seeing the events live, while thinking that the skeleton's personality is just like their society leader since both are scummy. Meanwhile, the squirrel guy was shocked to see a familiar face. Now back to where Skeleton is, they finally managed to take back Guling's number plate. With this, the commentator announces the list of players who have been eliminated so far, which one of them is Guling. However, before he leaves, he invites Skeleton to join their union, and he assures him that he is not petty to target a single person simply because of an elimination. He is simply doing this because he hopes that they could better enjoy and dominate this game. With this interaction, Skeleton is convinced that Guling truly deserves to be the first-seated player of a large union, still so handsome even after being eliminated. And before he could think more about Guling's proposal to join his union, Cece suddenly hugs him, because she is excited to see Skeleton's true form, as she asks him to do it again, while Skeleton is struggling to get away from her, but her horniness was too strong for him, so he was about to lose control and start clapping. Fortunately, Bubbles appeared in the nick of time. Now Skeleton was able to get away from her grasp. After that, Saiyan approaches Skeleton to thank him for the opportunity he gave him, and with Guling eliminated, the whole Western Union can take a big breath of relief. Still, Saiyan knows not to let this opportunity slide, as he also tries to recruit Skeleton, asking him to join their union. And since Saiyan is a man of culture, he tries to convince Skeleton by telling him the most crucial thing they have, and that is, they have all kinds of beautiful angel sisters, and they also have the secret recipe milk tea made by their professional chefs. Hearing this made Bubbles and Skeleton's imagination run wild. However, he knew not to get carried away, so he tells him that it does not matter now. After the big battle yesterday, everyone should just rest for the day, so he suggests to not mind the competition during daytime, because he just wants for them to have fun together. But before they could start, Skeleton asks Saiyan if he has any pictures of those angel sisters,